It's Maz and the Professor Don Hewitt in today for Barney. All right, let's go to the Western Pizza guest hotline and say hi to Tyler Yaremchuk. He's back on the show. He's part of OilersNation.com, and if I get this correctly, he is with the rest of Oilers Nation. Correct, Tyler? You're in Fort Lauderdale covering the team?
Yeah, we are. We're in Fort Lauderdale. I'm poolside, so if you see someone shirtless behind me walking around, it's just another Oilers fan cruising around enjoying the sun.
um, After watching the first two games of the series, were you as surprised as a lot of us to see a 6-1 game, how it all turned out last night?
Yeah, I mean 6-1 Stanley Cup Final definitely catches you a little bit off guard, just especially considering the fact we played 3 overtime periods in the first 2 games of this series, but it was pretty clear early on that the Oilers didn't have it. They're a team that really thrives on getting into a zone, right? Instead of getting into a cycle where they can get comfortable. And when there's 8 penalties in the first period and the crowd's all over you and you're down 2-0, the Oilers just never looked comfortable or confident in that hockey game. So yes, surprised to see a 6-1 win, but if you would have told me after the first period, hey, the final's going to be 6-1, I would have been like, yeah, that probably lines up.
Is it possible that the Florida Panthers just have a greater will than the Edmonton Oilers and are stronger psychologically?
No, I'm not willing to go there because we've seen this Oilers team push back from, they've pushed back through adversity a lot as a group. I mean, you can go back to last season. They're down 3-2 against the Vancouver Canucks. They come back and win that series. I mean, how many teams even have the mental will to come back down 3-0 in a Stanley Cup final to force a game 7? They're down 2-0 against the LA Kings. What do? They come back, win 4 straight. Like, losing game 1 to Dallas, win 4 straight. Like, this Oilers team has shown an ability to take a bad game, a bad couple of games, and just park it, push it to the side, and say, we know what we need to do in order to be better. So I don't think that mental edge really comes into play all that much. And, you could point out the Oilers blowing up a little bit, losing their cool in the third period of that hockey game is be a sign of mental weakness, but I look at it more like they went, hey, we're going to plant some seeds for next game. We're going to try to frustrate the Florida Panthers a little bit. We're going to get our pound of flesh, even if we're not going to win the game. So I don't know. I think this Oilers team mentally has shown throughout the season and throughout the last 2 playoff runs that they're mentally a very strong and mature group.
Is it just me, or does Leon Draisaitl get kicked out of faceoffs more now than ever before in his NHL career? It seems in the last 3 hockey games, is dude like 25% in, 75% getting the boot? Did he do something to a linesman's wife or girlfriend somewhere along the way? Like, what's with the hate on Draisaitl, man?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you are learning something that Oilers fans learned probably 2 years ago. This guy, if they kept track of the stat, he gets kicked out of more faceoffs than anybody. And there is a part of it, there's a theory I have, because you'll notice a lot of it is he gets kicked out on the power play. But who's out there on the power play with them? It's Connor McDavid. I think there's a little bit from Draisaitl's perspective where he goes, oh, I'm going to push the line here. And, if I get kicked out, I get kicked out. 97 comes to take the face off, and he's not half bad at those either. So I do think sometimes if he's on the ice with McDavid, it's intentional in the sense of, I'm going to try get every edge I can in this face off. If I get kicked out, Connor McDavid will try win it, and it's still a 50-50 coin flip for us. But if they don't call me on my cheating, maybe I have a 60-70% chance of snapping this thing back. So I do think some of it is intentional, and it's a product of having 20 and 97 on the ice together. But it drives me nuts, man. Like, no one is here to watch linesmen. I've been covering this sport for 10 years. I've been a fan my whole life. You guys are in the same boat. Like, do you even understand what constitutes getting kicked out of a faceoff? I have no idea.
Nope.
Well, Tyler, so back to the Oilers scoring. Who has to start scoring for Edmonton who is not currently scoring?
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason why the second and third round, even the tail end of the first round, was so encouraging for the Oilers, it's because Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl weren't doing a ton at 5-on-5 relative to your expectations of them. It was a 2-goal game from Adam Henrique. It was a 4-game run where Connor Brown looked like the $4 million player the Oilers thought they were getting 2 years ago. And so far in this Cup final, that hasn't necessarily been there. The scoring's been the big guns. The scoring's been the power play. And you look at an Adam Henrique who's looked slow. Evander Kane doesn't, he had the 1 goal in game 2. I feel like he has a little bit more to give. Like, I would say basically anyone who's not on the top line right now, and then also add in Leon Draisaitl. Like, I've liked Nugent Hopkins' game. He's clearly playing through an injury, so you got to keep that in mind when you evaluate him. Draisaitl's good, McDavid's good, Perry's good, but anybody. And that's kind of the beautiful thing about this Oilers team is you can look up and down this lineup, line 2, 3, 4, and go, that's a guy with potential. That's a guy who's scored before. That's a guy who in this playoff run has had a handful of games where he's looked really, really good. Right now, they're getting nothing from nobody. And if they can just get one or two of these players to kind of find their groove and find their confidence, it's probably going to be enough for them to bring this series back to Alberta, tied at 2. So I'll say any one of Brown, Henry, Frederick, Kane, any one of them has a big game, and the Oilers are going to be in a good spot on Thursday night.
I thought the most interesting part of the hockey game last night, and there were so many storylines, but one that maybe didn't get picked up on, Don thought it was important, when Aaron Ekblad launched Connor McDavid off his skates. You never see McDavid get hit, let alone get taken off his skates. That hit was big for me, and I'm like, all right. So, and it was by his. Are they best friends? I know they play together or whatever. They're pretty tight. But when I saw McDavid shooting that way, and nothing was happening, and there's no real response, I'm like, uh-oh. To me, that was big. I don't know how you took that hit.
Yeah, I think part of it is, you're in the offensive zone. You're down, I think, 3-1 at that point in the hockey game. I don't think your instinct necessarily, although to be fair, I do think Evander Kane was on the ice, so maybe he stepped up and done something. Your instinct in that moment is like, get the puck, we got to try score. You're not at that point in the second period thinking, let's go get retribution and jump somebody, because you're still relatively in the hockey game. McDavid was slow to get up. He went down the tunnel. I think it was important to note he went down the tunnel with the equipment manager, not the trainer. TD4 stayed on the bench, and if the guy's hurt, the trainer goes down the bench with them. So I do think something maybe just got knocked loose, or maybe McDavid did feel something and went, you know what, I'm fine, but I want to throw some extra padding on there. The guys are always wearing sort of those guards on their side, and McDavid's battled core injury at different points this season. So yeah, I mean, I do think that maybe fueled part of the response later in the hockey game. It gave the Oilers a bit of a, we need to start standing up for each other. But in the moment, I'll excuse it, because again, you're down 2 goals in the offensive zone. Your priority needs to be scoring at that point, not let's go get our pound of flesh out of Aaron Ekblad and take a penalty. When it's 6-1, yeah, do dumb stuff, cross-check guys, whack guys in the face. If that's the way you want to end the game and get your frustration out, sure. At that point, though, down 3-1, I'll excuse the non-response, if you want to call it that.
Tyler, is there any case that you can see for the Oilers to switch goalies?
So I wouldn't switch goalies. If you gave me the 2 buttons right now, I'd say give me Stuart Skinner, give him a chance to bounce back. He's been so good for the last 3-4 weeks that he's earned the right to have a bad game. And against Dallas, he rebounded from his bad third period exceptionally well. The case for Calvin Pickard, if I were to make it, is this is your last chance to do it. We know Stuart Skinner is traditionally a very, very up and down goalie, and those ups can last for 3 weeks and the downs can last for 3 or 4 games. If you get the read that he was a little bit too scrambly in game 3 and he needs a reset and he's got it on the sidelines, game 4 is your last chance to do it, because you know what? If you do it in game 4, Pickard starts and they lose, you're down 3-1, but it's very similar to almost the Vancouver series last year, where you head back on home ice, you point at Skinner and you say, we trust you to get us out of this jam. You're rested. You're ready to go. If you go with Skinner in game 4 and he's bad again and you're down 3-1, I don't think you go to Calvin Pickard in an elimination game in the Stanley Cup Final and trust him to beat this Florida Panthers team 3 times, because I don't think his game has the upside. He certainly has a higher floor than Pickard, but the ceiling's not than Skinner, but the ceiling's not as high either. So if they're gonna do it, got to do it in game 4. But I would lean more towards trusting Stuart Skinner and his ability to bounce back.
Do you know what kind of injury Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is battling? Because he was a game-time decision yesterday, and like everybody thinks that with Matthew Tkachuk, it's some sort of groin thing, 4 nations battling. What's with Nuge? Because he's a durable hockey player. Like, he doesn't miss time. So,
yeah, I mean, so I think it's something more upper body related, which might be why you saw him get taken off the top power play unit. This is purely speculation on my part. He's taken off the top power play unit because I wonder if it's not hurting his ability to shoot a puck. And they went with Jake Wallman instead, taking on a more traditional 3 forwards, 2 defensemen look. I think he took a hit early in the series that maybe could have re-aggravated something. There was nothing that looked painful. There was no point where he went down the tunnel. But he's obviously dealing with something. I mean, a lot of guys are this time of year. I think it's not serious enough to keep him out of any of the remaining games in this series. I just think if it's something that's upper body and it's hurting his ability to shoot and pass the puck, that would explain why you're going, don't even bother taking morning skate. Don't do our line rushes on the off days. Go out there, get your legs loose on game day, but you don't need to be going out and ripping pucks if it's causing you discomfort. So that would be my best guess, just sort of connecting the little dots of information that we have.
Now, you were saying there was some Oiler fan with a shirt off in the swimming pool. I know a lot of people there, they won't travel to the U.S. because of all the politics and whatnot that's going on. So how many Oiler fans are actually down there right now, Tyler?
Not even close to as many as last year. And I think the factors you listed are certainly a part of that. Like we do, and it's a big part of it, Oilers Nation community, all of that. We like to say where we're going for the pregame meetup. And last year we went to a bar across the street from the arena, probably 150 Oilers fans in there. Like it was packed, standing room only. The line to get a beer was 30 minutes. This year, last night, maybe 30 to 40 if I had to ballpark it on the spot. Like there's not as many. And I think part of it is obviously the cost. Part of it might be political. Part of it might be that last year it was their first trip to the Stanley Cup Finals in 20 years. And I think a lot of people maybe just always did the, if they ever get back, no matter the cost, I'm going. And now that it's the second year back and, there was no world in which they actually won the Stanley Cup down here, the best they could get to is 3-1. I think there were maybe some people who said, what, I'll hold off on the trip, save it for maybe game 6 if they could win it all, or just save my money for tickets back at home. But definitely a lot fewer down here than last year.
I'm sure Wes McCauley is the least most popular person in Edmonton in the past 24 hours. Do we know who's going to be on Thursday? Has the NHL announced who the refereeing pair is going to be? Because it's funny, Wes McCauley and those guys usually call a pretty good game. Last night, once again, it was the first period weird, and then things went away and all of that. But in your best estimation, I think the officiating was better last year in the Stanley Cup Final than this year. I don't know where you fall in on that.
The fact that in each first period so far in this series through 3 games, the number one story coming out of the period is, wow, they're calling everything. Like the officials have been a story. And I think if you were to ask anybody, and even ask an official, what's your number one job? I am not going to be a story in this hockey game. But them going and calling absolutely everything in every first period and seemingly going, perfect, we hit our quota. And then they don't really call much the rest of the game. At least last night, they didn't keep or continue calling things until it was totally out of hand and it was egregious. It's not good. I would be surprised if we see that officiating duo back together. Wes McCauley will get another game because he's Wes McCauley and he always gets cup final games. But like 8 penalties in the first period was just ridiculous. And the softness of them, like Vander Kane's cross-check on Gustav Forsling, go watch the replay. Gustav Forsling shoulder checks, sees that Kane's arms are extended and basically backs into him and then falls down. And I don't know. I thought there was a lot of really, really weak stuff on at least the Oilers calls. And then the officials kind of get themselves into the makeup call spin cycle. And then Florida taps an Oiler. And it's like, well, okay, that last one was soft. I regret it. So now I got to call this. And then, okay, well, that one was soft and they scored. So I got to call this. It's just a mess. I'm usually not a proponent, put the whistles away. But at some point in a hard-fought series, there's cross-checks in front of the net. There's hard hits that, maybe an arm rides up to a visor. Let it go and let them play hockey.
All right. There's the 4 major sports leagues, of course, in North America, the NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, NHL. Let's throw the CFL in too. I'm going to ask you a question, Tyler. Of all those major sports, which one, I know what I think I know what Maz thinks, which one is the most inconsistent league for officiating?
I'm an NFL fan. I watch a lot of NFL football throughout the year. I would say it's NHL and NFL, probably pretty close to neck and neck at the top. And I feel bad saying this on Regina or on Saskatchewan radio. I don't watch a lot of CFL, so is that your guys' answer? I'm sorry.
Oh, the answer for me is
they're giving me crap
it's not
back
all
here.
For me, it's absolute runaway for the most inconsistent refereeing, the NHL. It's not even remotely close. No other sport changes officiating rules, at least what happens on the court or the ice or the field, like the NHL does. And I think NHL players, general managers, coaches, their heads are always on a complete swivel as to what is going to be called in the NHL not just goalie interference, anything. And I'll go wild and say ever since Gary Bettman was the commissioner, which has been almost longer than I've even been alive, NHL officiating has been dreadful. And he just doesn't hire the right people. I don't know what he's doing, old Gary Bettman, but honestly, it's embarrassing when the players don't have a clue as to what's being called.
It's the standard. That's always been the problem for me. If it's going to be a game like last night where you're going, we are calling everything, then call everything. And if there's 8 penalties in the first, call every infraction in the second period too. My issue is when it's just flip-floppy and it's dependent on the game. And like, you know, I always laugh. If you could bet on which team's going to take the next penalty in a hockey game, anyone who's watched one NHL game or a season of NHL hockey could become a millionaire, because when a team is up 2-0, is up 2-0 and they've had 2 power plays, you sit there and you go, well, we know, like, the team who's trailing is absolutely getting the next one. And unless it's a puck over glass where, like, they can't ignore it no matter how hard they try, you know how that's the annoying part for me. It's the game management. That's always the term that's thrown around. And you're right. They ask Gary about it every year at the Stanley Cup Final, and he says, we have the best officials in the world. It's not a problem. I think every hockey fan would disagree with Mr. Bettman.
I think so.
All righty. On the Western Pizza guest hotline, Tyler Yaremchuk from OilersNation.com. Hey, Tyler, there's this thing called climate change going on. So heavy SPF, my friend, if you're in the Fort Lauderdale sun. Best of luck, and let's catch up in the summer once they start handing out all the free agent money, because that's a whole other story about who actually should be getting paid and who will end up getting paid. Safe travels. Appreciate the time today. That's Tyler Yaremchuk joining us on the Sports.